Hey everybody, and welcome to the weekly reroll, the show that finally gets started after 10 minutes of start the stream. Oh my god, the stream's not working. Start the stream. It's not working. Very problematic, but we're here finally at last to talk about what happened this last week in D&D on Twitch. Specifically, Roleplay Solemn, Dicing with Death, and HonorBound Redemption of the New Guard. We also cover misclicks, but they are still on hiatus, or I should say we are still on hiatus. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into our recap of Roleplay Solemn, which was yesterday. But I also feel like we did Solemn last week, too. No, I think we skipped last week. I don't think there was Solemn last week. Yeah, there wasn't. There wasn't. So, what happened this week in Solemn? If you do not want spoilers for Solemn, which happened last night, you should mute the stream until the Solemn logo goes away. Roleplay Solemn, Season 2, Episode 34. Well, Leia died. Mr. Varnoosh is her new character. He is a wizard thief gnome who rides a, what do you call it? A Great Dane-sized raccoon, basically. And that's the new character that gets introduced. The party starts off back in the castle, whose name I'm blanking on right now, and if I were a real DM, I would never blank on any names. Mezingna, Fort Mezingna. And they go to bed. They wake up in the morning and find more, that Ballbanes is still kind of being a jerk. But they also find that there's a writer who appeared in the night, or in the early morning, trying to find out where the child is, because the child is needed at Fort Barbassa, where there is going to be a divination when the moon aligns with the constellation of Martha, in which they are going to try and divine the true purpose of the child. They're afraid to move him by teleportation because they don't know what might go wrong. So they need the child to be ridden down there like on horseback. So the rider comes to get the child, and oh my god, it turns out that the child's missing. What happened to the child? Oh, that's right. Ballbane sent the child back to Old Point because the Balrog was coming and didn't want the child to be killed. And now there's a dispute because Bellbane says, well, the child is gone. You go get the child if you want, but, I had to send him away. I sent him with one rider because we didn't have any troops. The guy's really pissed off. He talks to the party. The party's like, oh yeah, fucking Ballbanes, blah, blah, blah. The party starts talking treason. Not like the party's being treasonous, but the party starts talking about Ballbanes like he's a treasonous motherfucker, which sets the guy on edge, and he's like, whoa, are you actually accusing Lord Ballbanes of treason? Really? And the party's like, well, we're not, things look a certain way, but we're not actually saying anything. And eventually the party agrees to try and go to Old Point to find the child, but they first sleep for 12 hours because they needed their nap. And so they get a 12-hour late start on going to find the child. Well, they sleep for 8 hours, but it takes a while to fall asleep because they had actually just woken up and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, eventually they set out at night to go back to Old Point. They get some horses, they ride in, and as they're riding, it's just the party without Mr. Varnoosh, without Jen's character. They come across these old ruins because there's between Fort Mezingna and Old Point, there are two towns that have been completely destroyed by the war, and there's nothing left but ruins. Like, even Old Point is about 45% ruins right now and 55% operational facilities. It was sacked and damaged in the first months of the war over here. And once the Verossi soldiers got pushed back, Old Point was rebuilt slightly, but there are a couple of other towns. There's a lot of other towns around here that have just been totally destroyed and emptied. Going through one of these towns, they come across, this is at night, 4 bandits surrounding this gnome on a raccoon. A fight ensues, and in the fight, to start off the fight, Jeff's character, Wojtek, casts the multi-hit version of command that lasts for multiple rounds, and he commands the bandits and Mr. Varnoosh to sing about why they are here and fart, or to fart and sing about what they're doing here, something like that. 2 of the guys pass their save. Mr. Varnoosh does not pass the save. The other 2 guys fail. The party wipes out the bandits, and Mr. Varnoosh is just there singing about why he's here and how he needs to fart, because that's what Wojtek did. And so the party beats the shit out of Mr. Varnoosh and knocks him unconscious because he won't stop singing, because he can't stop singing because Wojtek made him sing. Mr. Varnoosh falls asleep, loses all of his spells. well, gets knocked unconscious, loses all of the spells, wakes up. They just knocked him unconscious, didn't bring him down to 0. It was all temporary damage. Anyway, Vernush wakes up eventually after 2 rust monsters attack, eating Wojtek's armor, completely destroying it. They proceed to find this bloody trail, and they're, what the fuck is this shit? And so they start following the trail into this old cathedral. Down the stairs, they come across this group of people who are chanting, rat, cleaver, rat, cleaver, rat, cleaver, rat, cleaver. And they burst in on this group. Combat ensues. The enemies get defeated, but the party takes some serious damage, and there's a lot of spells that go off, and the party gets kind of screwed, but you know, they make it out okay. At the very end, they questioned one guy about what the hell this rat cleaver bullshit is. Oh, also, these bandits had a child with them. And it's not actually until the party's about to leave that JP is like, oh shit, we should go get the baby. You know, we probably shouldn't leave the baby in the dungeon. Turns out it is the baby. It is the child that was sent off to go to Old Point. So they take the child and leave. They hear this story about this thing called the rat cleaver, which is supposed to be a giant rat-like creature that has a meat cleaver that attacks and kills people. But before they can get too much more information, they kill off the guy. The party then decides to leave with the child, because now they got the child. So they don't even bother looking for the messenger or any further. Like, oh, here's the baby. Problem solved. Let's just head back. When they come across this monstrous rat creature, is like hunched down on his hind legs, but still like 9 feet tall and 6 feet wide, and has this giant fucking meat cleaver in his hand. A battle ensues. Wojtek gets off his, what do you call it? Inverted ethics spell, while the rat cleaver attacks. He summons a whole swarm of rats, which instead of attacking the party, he starts hacking up the rats and eating them. Inverted ethics. And then eventually attacks the party. The party just gets on their horses and the raccoon and rides away, happy to just avoid the entire situation. And they eventually get back to Mezigna, put the child away, go to sleep, get woken up, head back to Yulkvad, which is where they fought the Balrog to begin with. Talk to Lord Longborn there, who says that there's a messenger that arrived for Leia, but Leia's dead, and would the party go see him instead? So the party goes and talks to the messenger, who says that he comes from Lord Ferris, one of the 4 generals of the Varasi army, with a message saying the timetable has shifted, you now only have 5 days. Party knows what this means, of course, and they report back to King Longborn. Tell him, Longborn says, you are forbidden to take the child anywhere. You are especially forbidden to take it into the forest to meet the brown-robed mage. That shit is not cool. Don't do it. Instead, we want to go send you on this mission to Dimreach to go kill Lord Kelborn, the head general of the armies out here in this section of the world. So the party gets some more rest. They gear up, and Wojtek gets better armor, as does Marius. Marius and Wojtek both get plate armor. And the TP spell goes off the next morning, bringing the party behind Dimreach. They position themselves in a place where they can hopefully take out a couple of scouts and steal their clothing and armor, or, you know, whatnot, and then head into Dimreach. And that's where we leave with Roleplay Solemn. Excuse the cough. So that's it for Roleplay Solemn this week. We will not have a Solemn for the next, I want to say, 2 weeks, or maybe a week and a half, just because there's BlizzCon, and then there's Home Story Cup. So, you know, everyone's out for BlizzCon, and Jeff is out for Home Story Cup. Next up is Dicing with Death. So, if you do not want Dicing with Death spoilers, now is the time to mute. Dicing with Death, our Halloween special. If you have seen Solemn or heard the recap of Solemn, you might notice that there are some similarities with some storylines between Solemn and Dicing with Death, and that's because I blatantly stole what Ryan did in Dicing with Death. I asked for his permission to use it, and he totally gave it to me, so there we go. That's that. Dicing with Death. Qualnir heads back from the Elven lands to Solstice, and in the process he runs across the Sunblade. But before that, he comes across this weird, like, not a trove, a cove, a clearing. What the hell is a circle of trees called? It's not a clearing, it's not a cove, it's not a it's a grove. He comes across this grove of trees that have all these weird faces in them. And after stabbing one of the trees with a knife because the faces were changing, he wasn't sure which one he was looking at. The tree like comes alive and starts chasing after me like, "Why are you attacking me?" Qualnir pulls a, "My friends told me to do it. Go look at my friends." And the tree starts to turn around to look at his friends, and Qualnir runs. Qualnir gets the hell out of there, keeps heading back to Solstice. Before he runs into Sunblade, he also runs across a Sylph, an air elemental spirit, who's bathing in the river. After some discussion, the Sylph gets pissed and leaves, not too unexpectedly. And Qualnir eventually gets back to one of the towns on the way to Solstice. I forget its name. It's south of the mountains. It's the town where he met the elves that took him to the elf wood. I forget the town's name. Doesn't matter. That's where he meets the Sunblade. And then together the two of them travel back to the town. Uh, Qualnir is told this time that there's been a murder, and the murderer came out of his house. Qualnir's like, "What the fuck, dude? You can't come out of my house. My house doesn't have any doors or windows. It's literally just a block of stone right now." Sunblade says, "Just wait and see." So we eventually get there, and there's this like bloody trail leading from the house next door of mine, the Rose Grove's house, up to my house, and then up the wall and onto the roof. I'm like, "What the fuck is this shit?" So I get the Sunblade to cast light on my short sword. We get some rope. We climb up the roof. I climb down a hole that's in the top of the roof. What the fuck? How'd this hole get here? And down into the sewer where the door has been pushed back. I meet this crazy old man who's just going, "Rat, cleaver, rat, cleaver, rat, cleaver, rat, cleaver," in the sewers. And I'm like, "What the fuck is this all about? Hello?" And I eventually get him to say that a rat, there's something down in the sewers below, and I ask him to take me to it, and he does. After wandering around through this maze-like area for a while, we come across these were-rats that that attack me. I managed to fight them off, and they're very surprised that I can even hurt them because they take magical weapons to hurt, but I have magic weapons, so I do some pretty hefty damage to these were-rats, drive them back, and eventually come across the were-rat center. There's a big long section of dialogue, and there's a child there too. If you want it, you should watch it because it's good, but it's too much to recap now. And eventually I come face to face with the Rat Cleaver. He's this massive four-armed rat man with a cleaver in one hand and like a short sword or something in the other hand. And we do battle. I slay the Rat Cleaver. I take the child and I try to leave. However, it's a maze and I get lost. And we spend a lot of time trying to get out of the maze. And it's very interesting because I'm stuck in a maze that is not that complicated. And it's a good example of mazes in D&D and how they work. Anyway, eventually I escape. Excuse me. Send the child back to his house. When the mom asks where her husband is, I shake my head and say, "Yeah, you could only get one," and leave her with her child because the kid's like, "My dad's alive, but I don't want to go get him. Fuck him." So the kid was being very unforthcoming, and I got the impression that his dad is probably in a really, not in a bad situation, but, possibly dead, possibly being eaten, possibly, turned into a rat or something. I don't know. But the kid was like, "Let's not go get my dad. Let's actually just leave." So we decided to leave. Yeah, and that's where we end Dicing with Death. The next Dicing with Death is probably going to be Wednesday or Thursday. Well, I should wait here. Okay. The next Dicing with Death is probably going to be Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure which one, but it's coming up soon. Last on the list for today is HonorBound, Redemption of the New Guard. So, if you don't want spoilers, it is time for you to look away, my friends. Look away. HonorBound, Redemption of the New God. The party has just slain the Boule. We push its body over a ledge to block one of the paths in because we hear winter wolves again, and we go inside to rest. We also hack apart the Boule from the backside because his back is against the door now. And in the process, we extract the horn. We kill a couple of wolves that are getting dangerously close to us, and we eventually return. There's some bullshit with the Lady Arrowhead or Arrowin or the elf chick that kept hitting on us. There's some shenanigans with her having like a full army at her back that show up to rescue her like the next day after we kill the Boule, which is total DM hacks, and we poked Chucky with it plenty. Um, and then we leave. We head back to Goldfort, and we find that there are elves looking for us. So Justin, not Marus, not Maurice, Marius, Martour. Martour uses his invisibility spells on me to keep me nice and invisible. And we proceed back to Goldfort. I quickly go and hide in a tower because there are elves with griffins everywhere looking for me. And the party, after some chat, decides, all right, we've got the horn. Let's just GTFO. We go upstairs to the roof. We use the horn. We warp into this castle, or just outside this castle. As we go in, there are Duergar, dark dwarves there, and battles break out. We fight some Duergar, and we start breaking our way into the castle. We fight past a couple groups of them who keep turning invisible and running away or enlarging themselves. And then we come across this group of women and children who we opt not to kill, but they're still there. We loot some areas, and we eventually come across this half dragon. He's got like black scales and he breathes fire instead of acid. So maybe he actually had red scales that he painted black. We're not sure. There's some errors that happened there. Anyway, we start raiding this keep, the keep where we're looking for the Moonstone, and no one has seen it, and we're not sure where to go. But we don't get the chance to finish the keep because we run out of time. Also, next week's so that's HonorBound. We get the horn, we get back to Goldfort, we use the horn, we go to where we're supposed to go, and we start exploring the place. And that is it for HonorBound. Next week, we will have HonorBound probably 2 hours later than normal, because I will be coming back from, BlizzCon next week on Sunday. And I will need some time to get home, because my flight leaves leaves LA Sunday morning. So we'll probably be doing HonorBound 2 hours later than its usual start time next week. So expect that. And that has been our episode of the Weekly Reroll. If you're watching this live and you stay tuned, we will do some cartography in a bit. If you're watching this on YouTube, then the cartography VOD should be around here somewhere if you're interested, or you can just go watch Dicing with Death because it's a fantastic show. Or HonorBound because it's good too. Or Solemn, or whatever, man. That's it. Take care, everyone. That's not the right overlay.